Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me Mr. Shrenik Jain, who's the founder and CEO of Infinity Void, that is working towards creating a singular metaverse city capable of interconnecting infinite virtual worlds within it. So, Shrenik, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Why don't we start with a small, brief introduction and background?
Sure. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for having me here. I am Shrenik, the CEO and founder at Infinity Void. I've been here in the tech industry for almost 5 years and have been working especially in the immersive tech for the last 2 years. So, we as a company are determined to create an open and interoperable network of metaverses. And to attain that interoperability, we are creating a singular metaverse city, which will act as a foundation to connect multiple virtual worlds within it.
Before we get into describing what an open, interoperable metaverse is, I think let's give our audience an understanding of what actually the metaverse is. So it will be great if you could give your version of what you think the metaverse is.
To make it much more easier for everyone to understand, we could compare metaverse with 3D internet. Earlier, we have been browsing through Google, browsing through websites, but that was in a 2D form. But when we talk about 3D internet, it makes our life much more easier. We are able to understand content in a much better way. It adds context to the website and to your experiences. So, metaverse is not industry agnostic. We are not talking about a particular industry, and we're not talking about the VR headsets because that is a huge misconception that metaverse is all about VR. So metaverse is a part of the 3D internet which you could use, and you could explore various types of experiences within the metaverse. It could be either a virtual showroom or a conference room or an experience center of a brand. So metaverse is a holistic environment of the 3D internet.
What you're trying to say is that it's the future of the computing, which is which will enable us to transition from this 2D flat interface to the 3D world, and it's gonna impact all possible industry, and it's not just VR, because the common conception, rightfully, I mean, around the world, at least in the layman, is that virtual reality is the only way to access metaverse. But today, I think metaverse is going to be, I mean, through your phones, through your web, through your HMD, and so on and so forth. So interesting. What is Infinity Void?
So we here at Infinity Void are creating a platform for the metaverse, which means that we are thinking the metaverse to be in a form of a city. So you could compare Google in the 2D internet with our platform, which we're creating in 3D. So think it as a Google of metaverses in a form of a city, where the various virtual land parcels that we have in any city, including our own metaverse city, will act as the portals or the gateways to different metaverses. So it becomes much more easier for everyone to explore the different type of content in the 3D internet rather than just scrolling through the browser and checking out various experiences on the 3D internet. We are creating a 3D environment which acts as a gateway to various portals.
The World Wide Web, which is Web 2, it's pretty much open. I mean, if I get onto a specific website, I can get onto another website, and so on and so forth. But then when you talk about metaverses, at this point in time, there's nothing, at least that I know of. We speak about interoperability. There's no interoperable website at this point in time. There are standards. There are people working around the world on creating something which could be interoperable, where you take your asset, your avatar, your whatever, from one world to another. How do you go about doing that first, this thing, and elaborate a little bit upon this what you saying about like a singular city that you're trying to build, maybe like the Google or for the metaverse. Elaborate on that. How is it, what it is, and how are you working on making that happen?
Sure. So when we talk about open, there are two words, open and interoperability. Open, we mean that anyone would be able to create using our standards and using our SDKs and plugins. When we talk about interoperability, we mean that there is persistency among the worlds. So when I talk about persistency, I mean that when I'm person X in a world called, let's say, Meta, and I go to another world called Sandbox, so I am the same person visiting those two worlds. And therefore, these two worlds should have a context about who I am, what are my digital assets that I own, and there is no need to log in when going to different platforms, because currently in this scenario, every world is unknown about you until and unless you create your accounts on that platform. But what if you create a singular account using our platform, and then you would be able to traverse through different content, different experiences, and each experience would be aware about you as a digital human being. What are your preferences? What is your name? Because we are having a centralized data based on blockchain, so we would be able to identify what kind of preferences do you have and what all digital assets you have. Because currently, when we are during this NFT hype, we have seen that many metaverse platforms have sold 3D assets, whether it be in-game assets like weapons or avatars. But we have also been seeing that many of the users have been rug pulled during this NFT hype. So the benefit of interoperability is that whether you purchase any 3D asset in a metaverse called A, you could bring them to some different type of metaverse. So your single asset has multiple utility all across the platform, which gives you a cushion and which increases your value of the asset. And even if one metaverse goes down or goes bankrupt, you still have that asset, and that asset still has utility.
But Shrenik, doesn't work two ways. I mean, it's great for the consumers who are getting onto the platform, but what about the platform itself? Because for per se, like a Facebook, Facebook wouldn't want its users to move on to another platform, right? So how does that play out? That's my first question. Second question is, can you talk about this backend tech of this interoperability that you're talking about? How does one take his asset, his avatar identity, his points, whatever he's collecting from one, and have it persistent on other platforms also?
Sure. So actually, when we talk about platforms, basically platforms are built are consumer centric and not are thinking about themselves. So because even if you're creating a product, you should always have a target audience in mind, what they want. Currently, Facebook is charging around 50% of the royalties from in-game sales, which is a lot, and it doesn't make any sense for a business to have their sales there in the platform. So I mean, in the future, it is it is clearly evident that metaverse is the future, but in order to make it accessible, affordable, and convenient, it is very important us as an organizations to ensure that users get the best benefit out of it, because ultimately what we are building is for the users. And until the users are not getting benefit out of it, then there is no time or there's no point of spending billions of dollars creating a platform which nobody wants. And when we talk about the base or the tech behind it, we have been creating protocols, uh, decentralized and centralized, and which ensures that once you are registered on a platform, it is being registered in a decentralized form, and this data is being sent to different virtual worlds using your browser. So, for example, you first land in Infinity Void, and then you go to a virtual land parcel. Virtual land parcel here means that some other platform has bought or subscribed to our land parcel and hosted their metaverse experience or the platform using our city. So once a user goes to the land parcel and interacts with it, he would be teleported to the next platform. And all the data which we have obtained is not being stored in our data centers or their data centers. It is being with you in your browser history. So it is not permanent. We don't have any access to your data when it comes to, about your assets or your personal preferences. It is always stored in a browser, and when you go to a next browser-based metaverse, the browser would actually communicate with the metaverse and send all your information, whether it be your last location in the metaverse, whether it be your avatar. We have recently partnered with Ready Player Me for the interoperable avatars, and we are ensuring that all our partners follow our same protocols regarding the avatar. So we ensure that the avatars remain same. So whether you're collecting or whether you are having digital collectibles or like a personal merchandise, you would be able to have them in any metaverse you want. So we are ensuring semantic interoperability within it. But there are some points in which like assets in one world would not make any context in the other world. For example, you are in a car showroom in the metaverse, and then you are traveling into a first person shooter game in which you have bought weapons. So these types of assets, the developers have their own options that which assets should be considered, and the developers have full flexibility which assets they want. And the last, but not the least, you were talking about how the assets are taken from here to the next point. We are tokenizing assets in the form of NFTs. So it remains them with the users, and these NFTs have their data stored in IPFS in a decentralized form. So users could get the data, any metaverse could get the data from IPFS only when the user have access, the user's wallet have access to the NFT.
What's the team strength at this point in time? And how
Currently,
resource heavy is building something like this?
sure. So we are a team of around 25 to 30 people working in-house and remote, and we are not much more focused on creating our own tech from scratch. We are using microservices and other services which are available throughout the internet and utilizing them to the best possible ways and creating a platform out of the available services, because we have seen it is in front of our eyes which all services could be combined together to create an interoperable network. There is no need to create a different languages for the interoperability, because it is very difficult for developers to understand that entire language and create the metaverse. So we allow users to create their own experiences using open source platforms which are already available like Unreal and Unity, and then port it to our environment.
Right. So no need to reinvent the wheel. Whatever is there, leverage that and move ahead. You mentioned your team strength is in-house and remote. Talk to us about the importance of that, because there are a lot of companies at this point in time, post-COVID, who are taking that approach of going remote or going virtual. What are the pros and cons of like a physical as well versus like a remote team?
When we're talking about tech, location doesn't matter that much, because we have so many softwares to handle the tasks and the development pipeline. So it becomes very convenient for us to manage it remotely. But yes, remote work and on-site work have their own pros and cons, because in remote there are like communication lags, and your team is awake at some different time zone, and some other team is like going back home. So there's a communication lag between it, which increases the development time. But I believe that benefit of having team members globally is much more than having all of them on site.
Could you walk us through the core functionalities of Infinity Void?
Yes. So actually, we believe in a creator economy. So all our actions revolve around creator economy. So we have something to offer to any of the person from our target audience, whether it be landowners, artists, developers, or the players itself. So when I talk about landowners, we are referring to those users who have purchased land parcels within a city or have subscribed to it for hosting their experience. So in that case, we are incentivizing the people in this XR industry to actually host their content within Infinity Void, because we have scheduling an engagement payout program in which we would be sharing around 40% of the revenue with the most engaging content hosted within our platform. Secondly, we, unlike other platforms, we are not charging royalty from the developers, because we feel that the content is clearly regarding the developers and the landowners. So we shouldn't have any part of the royalty. They already have purchased a land parcel or have subscribed to a land parcel for hosting, and we believe that they should create engaging content. And when we talk about artists, we are creating various assets for the users or the players, whether it be vehicles to explore around the city, whether it be digital collectibles for the avatars. So we have our own documentation which the 3D artists could go through and create their own versions of avatars or vehicles, and then just list them with us so the other players could buy them. So they could directly sell the avatars or the vehicles to the end consumer itself and get all the benefit out of it. And the third one is about the developers. We we incentivize developers by telling them to tokenize the games in the form of NFTs, which which makes them easy to monetize games, and they could create engaging content within our platform and sell them in the form of NFTs, either in fiat or in crypto.
How does that work? So A, the pricing plan, subscription plan, and how does this work as a content creator, as an artist, or a landowner? I buy things. What can I do on it, and how can I make money?
So when we talk about the engagement program, so as a platform, we also sell our own products and game products like the avatars, outfits, the vehicles, and some other kind of subscriptions to our players. So the 40% of the microtransactions are being distributed among the most engaging content hosted on the land parcels. So that was about the engagement payout. And what the subscription part, the subscription costs around 60 euro per land parcel per month. Or if a user would like to purchase, it would cost around 1500 to $2000 for per piece for a land parcel. So we have taken both the ways to actually acquire a land parcel, because we believe multinational companies are much more focused towards the subscription model, while retail investors are much more focused towards buying land. But what are the benefits of owning land is that you could host your own experiences on that virtual land parcel, because it is the only way of making it interoperable. By hosting, I mean that you could create experiences on any platform like Unreal Engine or Unity and upload that to your land parcel using a dashboard. As a landowner, you could actually rent out your land to various companies. Like we are also renting out or having a subscription model for the land. As a landowner yourself, you could also rent out your land parcel to some other uh, entity who is interested in creating their own experience and making their world interoperable. When we talk about the creators like developers and artists, we have created our own documentation through which the developers could follow our guidelines and standards, which ensures interoperability. And once they have gone through the documentation, they could start creating their own assets, whether it be like collectibles for the avatars or the vehicles or some any other kind of asset they want. And they could actually they create it, they upload it through our dashboard. And once it is approved by our in-house team based on some technical specifications, we list them on our marketplace and make them available for our players to buy it. And once the item is purchased, the revenue goes to the artist or the developers.
Is the platform live, and who are the partners who have signed up or purchased land spaces?
We have been working on the minimum viable product, and it would be made live in this quarter itself. And when we talk about brands, we have recently tied up with Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. They would be creating their first virtual branch within our metaverse. Secondly, we have been in continuous discussion with Porsche for their own experience center, and we have also tied up with Fiat for creating their experience center for the consumers. But mostly, we have seen that before any product is live, you must have a demo to showcase your consumers. And it is a holistic platform, and it has various aspects. So it is very difficult to explain it before the platform is live. So once the platform is live, it would be much more easier to onboard various clients and various members who would be interested in using our platform and our network.
Lovely. Shrenik, wish you the very best to
Thank you.
you and your team. Now, this is not a single player; it's a multiplayer experience, right?
Correct.
So, building a single player versus a multiplayer is a huge difference. Talk to us about the challenges of building a multiplayer experience, and what's the concurrent users at this point in time which supports your MVP will support.
Sure. So actually, as we mentioned that we are creating plugin for open source platforms. So our development team is creating a plugin which once integrated to your project, you won't be able to you won't need to work on multiplayer aspect as a content creator, because at the back end we have been working with various developers who specializes in multiplayer network and layers. So we have already created a code through which you could just plug and play to environment, and then all the environment will be multiplayer. along with real-time text chat and voice chat. So, and once we talk about the concurrency, you have content creators have two options: either use our servers free of cost, uh, and it could or the concurrency would be around 100 users per server, or let's say 80 to 100 users per server. And if you need to scale, another server would be created based on the geographical location. So it is a scalable platform, and the concurrent users per instance could be around 80 to 100. But in the near future, we are planning to increase it to make it support more users in the coming future.
So, Shrenik, building a metaverse is one thing. Hosting and putting it on the cloud is another thing altogether. What's the plan? I mean, what I've read, you guys are taking the pixel streaming approach. Could you talk about the difference between the cloud server hosting, the pros and cons over there, versus pixel streaming?
Sure. So normally, most of the games that we play or the metaverses that we explore are either browser-based or they are downloadable clients. So downloadable clients are those applications which you need to download on your personal laptop or mobiles, while the browser-based is that it is accessible via the browser, but the application eventually uses your own PC's hardware for it. But when we talk about pixel streaming, it is just like YouTube or Netflix. So your application is being hosted on a cloud GPU somewhere all across the world, and you send your inputs like your commands of moving forward, moving backward, and it gets communicated to the cloud GPU. The cloud GPU interprets your data and sends visual feedback to your device. So it comes like a video. You send commands and it comes in the form of a video to your device. So we are not using any hardware of a device. So even a very high fidelity experience could be used or could be experienced on a very low end PC or a mobile. Because we at Infinity Void try to make Metaverse much more accessible, affordable, and available to the masses. And it is only possible when we have the right infrastructure for it, because not everyone would have high end PCs, high end GPUs. So to make it much more accessible, we started the pixel streaming services for our platform.
Right. What are your views on the India's XR industry globally? I mean, there was a huge hype when Facebook, transition to change the name from Facebook to Meta, but then the hype is kind of like, going down. I think, there are now more startups, companies, which has got the will to kind of hang around in the long run, are kind of staying around. But what are your views on the India's AR/VR ecosystem, and what do you think can be done to create a sustainable ecosystem that benefits everyone?
So I think during the metaverse hype and the NFT hype, there were a lot of players who jumped into this very quickly without actually understanding the basic use cases. And right now, even the brands or the companies are creating use cases which doesn't have any importance in the real world, or which could not complement the real world. So to make a platform or an industry sustainable, we should create use cases which are helpful in the real world. So that is one point. And in my opinion, making the using of generative AI with XR would be one of the best things which could ever happen. For example, creating an environment in a virtual world is very time consuming. You require a lot of human resources. But when we talk about generative AI, you could type in prompts and your entire environment could be developed within seconds. So it would help us make iterations much more faster and easier and at a lower cost. And the third part is that in the XR industry, we have been seeing the uprising of web XR. So, which means that using virtual reality headsets, you could use pixel streaming to make it much more easier. I mean that you don't need a high-end VR or a high-end device which would render your applications in the virtual reality headset. So you could use a cloud GPU to render high quality or stream high quality videos to your headset and display it in the VR using your web browser. So these are the three of the most important things that India should look at, because India has a very good uh, background for technology, and I believe because VR right now is very costly nowadays, and to make it accessible, we believe that India should keep the cost as low as much as possible to thrive this industry.
Yes, I think we're sitting in a fantastic point of time. We're transitioning from the 2D to the 3D internet. I think India's economical growth, with the social growth, I think is creating so much opportunities. And I think in the next few years, we're going to transition into the 3D world, and the students, the industries, healthcare, education, enterprise should understand this opportunity and know that this is going to be the next big opportunity, because the youngsters have already transitioned onto the virtual world.
Yeah.
Now these virtual world, when the tech kind of accelerates, will become seamless, will become open, will become interoperable, will become accessible, because that is the nature of the accelerating technology, the compounding factor of so I think we living in exciting times. It's just that students, entrepreneurs, government, everybody should come together, and that's how we'll be able to build a very sustainable and equitable business, which helps everyone, rather than just the Web 2.0 format, which has been always top down, hierarchical, where only the platform was taking all the benefits. And we're sitting at that fantastic point of time. So any last notes that you would want to leave our listeners with?
Yes, for especially for the XR professionals and entrepreneurs who would like to be the part of this journey, is that whether you would like to enter into this tech industry, my strongest opinion is that you should acquire knowledge about the tech that you have been getting into. Because I am from a commerce background and I've been learning tech for about 5 or 6 years, and I've understood the importance of learning each and every backend operations which are happening before actually creating a platform. Because there are a lot of companies which are developing software for the others, but creating a different platform or a creative or having innovative ideas, you always need some technical skills, and not technical skills in terms of coding, but the basic foundation, the basic knowledge of technology. It is very important, so that no one could actually play with you, or because there are a lot of companies which are using unethical ways to like use your money and create something which is not that good. So you always should have your own thinking and your own foundation of tech before entering or thinking to enter into this world.
Shrenik, wish you the very best to you and
Thank you.
Infinity Void. I think great things are going to coming your way. Wish you the very best. And to my listeners, if you like what you see any other, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Shrenik. Really appreciate it.